Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy and healthy start to this second day of March, baby. It's the second day of March, and there's actually a few things to be aware of today with some events looming overhead, and then a follow-up on the higher term time frame analysis that we've been looking at on this channel, plus a follow-up on the 12-hour setup that we've been looking at for the past few days here as well. Anyways, other than that, I want to start off things on a bit of a different note here with the Krown trading application showing off the events tab, as we do see that there are several economic events that are relevant today and actually tomorrow as well. Just kind of spoiled the surprise. But of course, you got non-farms coming out. But that's not what we care about, man. Jobless claims, who gives a fuck? What we care about is the ECB actually today. ECB going to be coming out with several speakers, which probably going to move the markets a little bit at least. And then of course, I think their CPI prints coming out as well. You can actually set alerts for this on the Krown trading application, which will stream them straight onto your computer if you care. And there you go. Just be aware of these events kind of looming overhead, because they probably will produce some intraday volatility. I also want to repeat something that I said. I think it was exactly 1 week ago on Thursday. From my studies, weirdly enough, Bitcoin on Thursdays has seen the most down days on Thursdays, just in general. Doesn't mean it's always going to be a down day, but in general, Thursdays are more likely to be down than not. Just a kind of a weird correlation that I observed in my last study. Anyways, let's just jump right into it right on over here. I want to start off with the 5-day time frame chart on the Gaussian channel. So let me first explain this one. First and foremost, how does it actually operate? Well, the way that we can make this actionable and relevant is just by looking at this indicator on the 5-day time frame when it turns red and when price action gets kicked out below the bottom band. When that happens, the next relationship that I'm most interested in is observing when price action works its way back into the lower band, and then its interaction with the mean band right here, the one in the middle. And what we've seen many times in the past is that anytime that Bitcoin has crawled its way back into the red zone after first being away from it for a while, it at least gets a test of the mean band, which we've already seen actually on this current drive here. Let me give you an example of what we've seen in the past. Here would be one actually from 2020, in fact. And then the real question is what happens around the mean band. If Bitcoin is going to get a rejection and initiate some, downside targets, maybe back down to like 20,000 bucks, that's very likely where that rejection would be born from. Now, based off of yesterday's video on the macro timeframes and also the Sunday videos that I've been putting out on this channel for a while now, I do think that would ultimately be a massive opportunity. At least that's what these stats are showing as of right now. I do not have any reason to believe that Bitcoin's going to put in new lows from here. Worst, maybe a retest somewhere around the current lows. But just like we've seen in the past, several times. Well, let me actually center this up. There we go. Just like we've seen in the past several times, where price action starts to test the mean band of the Gaussian channel, it likes to spend some time around there. And when it starts to grind up around it, as you can see over here in 2019. Typically in the past, it's been more likely to break it. That was not necessarily true over here in 2015, but it was true in 2019 and also in 2012 as well. You can see several tests into it. This one spent a lot of time. You could also say that it did test the, around the bottom side of it, but ultimately did bust on through. And that's when the busting action really began. As you can see, new all-time highs from that run, new all-time highs from this run. New all-time highs from this run, no new all-time highs from this one, so it's it's whack, and then new all-time highs from this one as well. Anyways, in this case, what we're interested in for the next 4-day period is where the mean band is at, which is now hovering down just above 23,500. Yesterday failed to close above yet again, so I wouldn't necessarily call this a rejection as it is right now. We'll talk about what a rejection would very likely look like. The earliest point, at least that I would feel comfortable calling a rejection, thus likely indicating downside targets maybe as low as like 20,000 bucks throughout the month of March. But as of right now, again, that mean band coming in around 23,500, let's say. So as long as Bitcoin's kind of grinding it up right here, I do look at it as also indicative that if Bitcoin does close above the mean band, we're very likely to see what we've seen every time in the past, actually, which is at least a move to the top side of the Gaussian channel. And in fact, in all prior cases, it's broken out of it after that as well. So that would have a more short-term target, let's say throughout the month of March and maybe April, somewhere around about $27,000, and a more long-term target probably within the mid 30s. Of course, that would be many months away in this case. So keep your eyes on, or maybe keep your eyes on that. Keep it as a consideration, at least as kind of like defining when pressure is on to the upside. Until then, as I've been saying, as long as Bitcoin's below it, as long as Bitcoin's below that mean band, do have to entertain the possibilities of a relatively short-term downside move. But again, I want to be very, very adamantly clear about reiterating my long-term stance that based off of the probabilities of all the charts that we've been looking at on the long-term videos on this channel, I do think that it would ultimately be a long-term opportunity somewhere in the low 20s, upper 19s, something like that. Anyways, moving on now into the relatively short-term timeframes compared to that, let's go over here to the hourly HPDR indicator. We can see the ranges operating quite well. In fact, there was a setup on this one yesterday. Obviously, this was like well after yesterday's video, so I didn't have a chance to call it out, but if you did take it, congratulations. We did get a closure below the 50% of historic returns range lows, plus decline in volatility right here. And then over the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, there was about 10% move to the upside, which is typically what we expect based off of that particular setup. Obviously, that's not available as of right now, but what we can look at this one is just it's just in the same way as the past. In this case, on the hourly time frame, I would be looking at a short-term pivot at 23,000, about 300. It's a little bit below there. If you do see an hourly closure below that region, then at that point I would be looking for Bitcoin to retest the prior low base somewhere around 22.9 or so. And we'll go over the 12-hour setup and what that means for that. Just spoiler alert, it doesn't mean much as long as it's above that pivot. 4-hour time frame does show current 50% of historic returns range lows right here, again around that. It's actually a little bit lower than 22.9 now, and it does move around obviously with each and every closure, but it does not repaint in this case. So 22.8 is actually the magical number right there. That is to say that I would actually start to look at the 5-day chart over here as a rejection along the mean band. And yes, lower $20,000 targets after that would be very much relevant. If you do see Bitcoin start to close medium-term timeframes below about 22.8, if you see that, yeah, there will be bounces along the way, but ultimately I would be looking for, an extension of the short-term downside, throughout the early portion of March, most likely. And again, bounce along the way, but ultimately somewhere down around there. By the same token, to the upside, what is the area of interest for the short term? The area of interest would basically be 23,850. Hourly closures above there, especially 4-hour closures above there. And at that point, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to make its next leg into the sort of like, low mid 24, somewhere between about 24,250, maybe even as high as 24,600, something like that. If that were to happen, we can go and reference stochastic momentum to kind of get a bias on where the pivots are currently at. Bless you, sir, but please have some respect. Hourly time frame is actually currently showing downside pressure as long as Bitcoin on CME is below 23,570. It's currently about $40 below, so not super relevant or not super concerning. 4-hour time frame is actually nosediving here and playing out a trendline regression rejection coming on from the last couple highs from the 16th actually, and that will be remaining with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's below where 23,850, which is actually in alignment with that hourly range high. So that is to say, as long as Bitcoin's below there, yeah, short-term risk remains to the downside, but back above there, momentum turns back onto the upside, very likely a move into probably the heart of 24s. 24s reminds me of that T.I. song. Anyways, 6-hour time frame. What do we have here? 6-hour time frame gonna actually twist to the downside as long as Bitcoin is below 23,700. Currently trading about $200 below there right now. 12-hour time frame is going to be crisscross to the upside, showing upside pressure above 23,400. This does look like a weak one to me. I do think that we probably get across again down, and then the real one comes somewhere right around here, and that's probably going to be the next like quote unquote big bounce on the medium-term timeframes. And then, of course, the daily still showing downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's below where $24,000. So you can see where all these pivots start to align with those ranges. You see where momentum starts to shift around depending upon how Bitcoin operates around those regions. But the last thing, and how I want to kind of tie all of this analysis together, assuming that this video is still working. Oh, motherfucker. I recorded it on this stupid thing, we can just go back to the regular ones right here. There we go. It's a little bit better of a view. Maybe. Anyways, probably doesn't make a humongous difference. Anyways, 12-hour time frame right here, Jewel Light setup. This again was a strategy that I posted on the channel like 4 or 5 months ago now. And basically the strategy is this. Anytime that the Jewel Light comes down below 35 and then turns white on the first tick, initiates a setup, especially if it's in alignment with the daily trend as well. In this case, when we've seen that setup, we've observed these statistics as being relevant for a, relatively short-term upside move. When I say relatively short-term, the average bars and trades was 18, so that would be nine days. Anyways, 42 closed trades on this one. So this is actually not with the daily condition, I should say, which is going to improve it, which, yes, we do have that, or Bitcoin has that available right now. Percent profitable, about 71.5%, so that would give it about a 71.5% strike rate, meaning that short-term upside more likely than downside, and a profit factor of about 2, which is pretty damn good. Let's see what happens though if we input a daily trend filter on this one, which will be right here, and this significantly improves the results. Now, only 16 total closed trades over the past 3 years, not a whole hell of a lot, but pretty damn good stats on there nonetheless, at least in my opinion. 87.5% strike rate with a 7.7% profit factor. What does that mean? That does mean that Bitcoin has a higher probability of moving somewhere into the middle of the 24th, maybe even to the top side of the prior range at 25, than it does not before breaking down. So what would indicate a failure here, thus indicating likely a lot further down? Well, this gets invalidated below the wick lows that we've seen thus far within this range, which again is 22,700, directly matching up with the low side of the HPDR indicator ranges. The low side range there. So that does imply that Bitcoin can, again, come back down and retest this region. That's fine. Just don't want to see a closure below that region. That would not be fine for this setup. That would indicate an invalidation. But until then, over the next, 5 days or so, it would still be suggesting that upside's more likely. I always want to reiterate that, while these stats are pretty damn good, it's not 100%, so it's not a guarantee, obviously. And I'm just showing these stats in the way that they're calculated. That's all. How you use this is up to you, or if you use it at all is up to you. Hopefully it's just a part of your own due diligence, not making up the totality of it. In this case, what was I going to say next? So again, because we can forecast, or because we have the average amount of bars in the trades, in this case with the daily condition, it's actually 23. With the daily condition not selected, it is 18. So I'm going to go with that one because it sounds better to me, lower time. That would be about 9 days. Well, this setup fired off when? It fired off on the 26th of February. So we are, I believe, 4 days into it. Yeah, today will be day number 4. 9 days, which would be right on the average, would put us at around March 7th. So got some time to go. What does that essentially mean? It essentially means that the longer that you see Bitcoin hold sideways here, like if it does something like this, the more likely you're going to see something like that. Ultimately, in like about a week from now. Wait, that doesn't sound right. A week. Okay, 9 days. 26, 7, no. What the fuck? Hey, what's going on here with these damn days? So that's 4 days. 4 days would be 8 bars. 8 bars. I'm just embarrassing myself right now. So we got 10 more bars. So yeah, 5 more days. Okay, I'm just doing my math wrong. That's why. Okay, yeah, 5 more days. I can't obviously add 5. That's my issue here. Anyways, so a little bit less than a week. Let's say if Bitcoin basically survives throughout the weekend without breaking below this region right here, more likely that we're going to see that move to the upside into the middle of the $24,000 region. At that point, have to come back to this chart over here and recognize that, well, that would actually be aligning with the next 5-day closure, which, if it were to happen, would put Bitcoin above the mean band, which is, again, 23,500 or so. And at that point, throughout the rest of March, April, probably looking at a move somewhere around the top side of the band here, which is hovering around about $27,000 as of the current moment. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. As always, I want to shill the old Bybit there. They got a pretty damn good promotion going on with 0% on maker fees for derivative contract orders. I've actually been spoke with them the other day, and they're going to be working on an even, in my opinion, a more attractive proposal with more reductions of fees, which is pretty fucking cool. Obviously very valuable for more active traders. If you're not, then it's probably not that valuable for you, to be honest. But as always, read the fine print with it. I'll have a link in the description below if that's relevant to you or not. Other than that, I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.